Imagine waking up one day to find your college degree is worth less than the paper it printed on. Sounds far-fetched? Well, it might be closer to reality than you think. The U.S. higher education system is teetering on the edge of a bubble that could burst at any moment. Welcome to the Economy Unpacked daily YouTube channel. From Wall Street to your street, we share the world of money in a clear way. For decades, a college degree in America has been seen as the golden ticket to success. It promised better job prospects, higher salaries, and a shot at the American dream. But as tuition costs continue to skyrocket faster than wages and inflation, many families are starting to question if it's still worth the hefty price tag. The central question we're tackling today is this: is higher education still a solid investment, or has it become an overpriced product that's at risk of collapsing under its own weight? This frames the education bubble debate, just like a financial bubble. We're seeing costs rise to potentially unsustainable levels compared to the actual value being delivered. To understand how we got here, let's take a trip down memory lane. Since the 1980s, the cost of attending a four-year college in the U.S. has more than tripled, even after adjusting for inflation. Public universities that were once affordable have shifted much of the financial burden from state governments onto students and their families. Why the dramatic increase? Well, it's a perfect storm of reduced state funding, increased demand for degrees, and fierce competition among universities to offer the fanciest amenities. Meanwhile, wage growth has remained stagnant, meaning students are shelling out way more for their education without seeing a proportional bump in their future earnings. This brings us to the elephant in the room: the student loan crisis. Brace yourselves for some eye-watering numbers. Total U.S. student loan debt now exceeds a staggering $1.7 trillion, spread across more than 43 million borrowers. That's trillion with a T, folks. Many graduates are struggling to repay these loans, with some carrying this financial burden well into middle age. It's not just about the money either. This mountain of debt is forcing an entire generation to put their lives on hold, delaying major milestones like buying homes, starting families, or saving for retirement. Economists are sounding the alarm, warning that this debt burden is acting like a ball and chain on the entire economy. It's limiting consumer spending, stifling entrepreneurship, and potentially setting us up for a major economic crisis down the road. Now, you might be wondering, is this just an American problem? Let us take a quick tour around the globe to see how other countries are handling higher education costs. In Canada, tuition is significantly lower than in the U.S., averaging around CAD $6,800 per year for undergraduates. While student debt exists, it's not nearly as extreme as what we're seeing south of the border. The UK saw a significant rise in tuition fees after reforms in 2012, with costs now around £9,250 annually. However, their repayment system is income-based, and loans are forgiven after a certain period, making it less burdensome on graduates. Australia uses the HECS system, where students borrow for tuition but only repay once their income exceeds a certain threshold. Payments are tied to earnings, which helps prevent the kind of financial strain we're seeing in the U.S. compared to these models. The American system stands out as particularly harsh: high upfront costs, high interest rates, and limited forgiveness options. It's like we're playing a game of financial Jenga, and the tower is getting wobblier by the minute. So, what's driving this education bubble? It's not just one factor, but a perfect storm of issues. Universities have expanded their administrative staff, driving up overhead costs. They're locked in an arms race to build the fanciest dorms, gyms, and facilities to attract students. There's still high demand for degrees, as they're often seen as essential for job access. And government policies that provide easy access to federal loans allow tuition to rise unchecked, since students can borrow regardless of the cost. These factors mirror other bubbles we've seen in history. Rising prices fueled by demand and easy credit, not by proportional increases in value. It's a recipe for disaster if left unchecked. But are there warning signs that this bubble might be close to bursting? Absolutely. Enrollment in U.S. colleges has been declining over the past decade, a trend that's only accelerated since the COVID-19 pandemic. Alternative education options are gaining traction, with online platforms like Coursera and coding boot camps offering cheaper, faster pathways into the workforce. We're also seeing a shift in the job market. Employers in tech and other industries are increasingly embracing skills-based hiring, reducing their reliance on traditional degrees. If students and families decide the astronomical cost of college isn't worth it anymore, universities could face serious financial strain, especially mid-tier institutions that lack the prestige of top schools or the affordability of community colleges. So, what does the future hold? There are a few possible scenarios. We could see the system stabilize if political pressure builds for reform, leading to measures like loan forgiveness or caps on tuition increases. On the other hand, we might witness a partial collapse, with some institutions, particularly smaller private colleges, shutting down if enrollment continues to fall. The most likely outcome, however, is evolution. Higher education could shift towards hybrid models, combining online learning with in-person experiences. We might see a rise in shorter, more targeted credentials and stronger ties between universities and industry. The outcome may not be a sudden burst, but rather a gradual reshaping of the entire system. As we wrap up, let's talk about what this means for you. If you're a student or parent planning for college, it's crucial to carefully weigh the cost of education against expected career outcomes. Not all degrees offer the same return on investment, and it's worth exploring alternative pathways that might better align with your goals and financial situation. For policymakers, the message is clear. Reforms are desperately needed to make education more affordable and sustainable, and for society as a whole. We need to redefine the value of education, finding a balance between knowledge, skills, and cost efficiency. The key takeaway is this: the U.S. higher education system is at a critical turning point. The choices we make in the coming decade will determine whether it transforms into a more sustainable model or faces a full-blown crisis. It is time to pop the bubble before it bursts on its own, because when it comes to education, the cost of inaction might be higher than any tuition bill.